She left her dreams behind to help me build my business. But when money finally came, I told her. She never did anything for me. I need to get this out. I need someone to know what a monster I became. Because maybe it'll save someone else from making the same mistake. That cost me everything. Sarah gave her master's program for me. Let that sink in. She was 2 semesters away from her psychology degree. Had a 3.8 GPA, professors who called her brilliant. But when my startup needed someone full-time and we couldn't afford to hire anyone, she dropped out without hesitation. We'll build this together. I told her. Once it takes off, can go back to school. She believed me. God, she believed every word. For 3 years, Sarah worked 16-hour days beside me. She handled customer service, managed our social media, did the bookkeeping, even learned basic coding to help with the website. When I was having panic about funding, she held me. When I wanted to quit, she reminded me why we started. She ate ramen for months so we could reinvest profits. Wore the same 3 outfits to business meetings, because we couldn't afford new clothes. Her friends stopped inviting her out, because she never had money to join them. The business finally exploded in year 4. Suddenly we were pulling in 7 figures. I started getting invited to conferences, featured in magazines. People called me a visionary. That's when everything changed. That's when everybody became someone I don't recognize. The attention went to my head. Other entrepreneurs wanted to network with me. Investors were calling. And yeah, there were women. Successful, polished women who saw me as this rising star. I started telling people I'd built the company. From scratch. Just me, grinding it out, bootstrap mentality. I conveniently forgot to mention Sarah sleeping on the office couch for months. Or how she'd cry quietly when she thought I couldn't hear, because the stress was destroying her. The worst part. I started believing my own lies. When people asked about Sarah, I'd introduce her as my girlfriend, not my business partner. I'd say things like, she helps out around the office. Helps out. Like she was some intern getting coffee. Sarah noticed. Of course she noticed. She started asking why her name wasn't on any of the industry articles about us. Why I never mentioned her contributions in interviews. Why she wasn't bidding equity despite building half the company. I brushed her off. Made excuses. Deep down, I was embarrassed by her. She didn't have the polish of these new women in my circle. She dressed simply, spoke quietly, didn't play the networking game. Everything came to a head at the tech conference in Austin. I was on a panel about startup success stories. And this venture capitalist asked about my support system. Honestly, I said into the microphone, success is about individual drive. I didn't have anyone holding my hand through this. It was all me, grinding alone in my apartment, believing in when nobody else did. Sarah was in the audience. I saw her face crumble in real time. But I kept going. The crowd was eating it, and I was high on their attention. People always want to attach themselves to success after the fact. I continued. If want something bad enough, don't need anyone else. Just do it. The moderator asked about work, balance, relationships. Look, I'm grateful for the people in I said, glancing at Sarah. But, at the end of the day, they weren't the ones making the hard decisions. They weren't the ones taking risks. Success requires sacrifice, and not everyone understands that level of commitment. I watched Sarah get and walk out. She was waiting in our hotel room when I got back, her laptop open, frantically typing. What are doing? I asked. She didn't look. Documenting everything. Every email I sent to clients. Every late night I worked. Every idea I contributed. Every dollar I invested. Sarah, come on. 3 years, she said, her voice shaking. 3 years I gave everything. I gave school. I gave my friends. I gave my entire identity to become whatever needed me to be. Urbine Matic no I appreciate St-ope. She finally looked at me, and her eyes were empty. Just stop lying. To me, to everyone. I heard what said today. Nobody holding my hand. All me. They weren't making the hard decisions. I tried to backtrack, make excuses, but she kept going. Know what the saddest part is? I actually believed we were a team. I thought when we succeeded. But they've been erasing me this whole time, haven't? Making the hero of a story where I was never supposed to exist. That's not true, Sarah. We're overthinking this. She laughed, But it was hollow. Broken. Then tell me honestly. Right now. What do you think I contributed to this business? And here's where I prove what a piece of garbage I really am. Here's the moment that replays in my head, every single night. Look, this woman who had sacrificed everything for me, who had believed in us when nobody else would, who had worked herself to exhaustion for our shared dream. And I said, look. I'm grateful we're there for emotional support. But let's be real about what actually built this company. The vision was mine. The risk was mine. The innovation was mine. Helped with some admin stuff, sure, but the real work, the work that mattered. That was all me. The silence that followed felt like. Sarah closed her laptop slowly, started packing. Really believe that, she said quietly. Actually rewrote history and had to make the hero. After everything we went through together. I'm not saying didn't help. Help. She stopped packing and stared at me. I didn't help, Marp. I built this with, but somewhere along the way, decided my contributions didn't count. I was just a, what? Window dressing. A cheerleader. She was right. That's exactly what I'd decided. Maybe need some time to think. I said. Emotional right now. Wrong thing to say. Sarah's face went cold. Colder than I'd ever seen it. Emotional, she repeated. Right. Because pointing out that taking credit for my work is just me being emotional. She finished packing in silence. 3 years of our together. Stuffed into 2 suitcases. At the door, she turned back. Want to know what's funny? I was going to propose to next month. Had the ring picked out and everything. Because I thought we were partners in every sense of the word. My heart stopped. I defended to everyone, Mark. When people said we're getting too big for britches, when they said success was changing, I told them they were wrong. That deep down, we're still the scared guy, who needed me to hold him, when the pressure got too much. She paused, her hand on the doorknob. But they were right, weren't they? Success didn't change. It just revealed who really were underneath. And then she was gone. I stood there in that empty hotel room, surrounded by the success I'd fought so hard for. And for the first time in years, I felt completely alone. I didn't know it then, but that was just the beginning of losing everything. I thought Sarah would come back. I actually thought she'd cool off for a few days and realize she was being unreasonable. That's how delusional I'd become. For the first week, I into work, told I was better off. No more emotional conversations about quitty and recognition. Just me and my empire. Then the clients started calling. Hey Mark. I've been trying to reach Sarah about our campaign metrics. Her emails bouncing back. Sarah's still handling our account. She hasn't responded to my messages. We specifically requested to work with Sarah again. Where is she? That's when it hit me. Sarah wasn't just helping with admin stuff. Like I'd convinced. She mossed the relationship with half our client base. They trusted her. They liked her. Some of them had never even spoken to me directly. I scrambled to take over her accounts, but I was terrible at it. Sarah had this way of remembering personal details. Following on things, making clients feel heard. I was all business, no warmth. Within 2 weeks, we lost 3 major contracts. But the real nightmare started when Sarah's documentation went live. Remember that laptop she was typing on in the hotel room? She'd been building a case. Every email thread where she'd solve client problems. Screenshots of code she'd written. Receipts for business expenses she'd paid from her personal account. Time, stamped photos of her working late at the office. She didn't post it vindictively. That's not who Sarah is. She posted it professionally. On LinkedIn. With a simple message. After 3 years of building a business from the ground, I'm moving on to new opportunities. Grateful for everything I learned and contributed during this journey. Looking forward to the next chapter. But attached was a portfolio. A detailed portfolio of every major project she'd led, every client relationship she'd managed, every system she'd built. It was undeniable proof that she hadn't been riding my coattails. She'd been carrying the company on her back while I took credit. The tech community is smaller than think. People talk. And suddenly, everyone was talking about us. Industry blogs picked the story. The invisible partner. When startup success erases women's contributions. TechCrunch ran a piece called, The Sarah Problem, Why Female Co. Founders go unrecognized. My name was Mud. The worst part. I couldn't deny any of it. Every example in her portfolio was real. Every client testimonial about her work was accurate. Every timestamp proved she'd been there from day one. I tried damage control. Posted my own statement about how Sarah was integral to our early success, and how we'd always valued her contributions. Too little, too late. The internet doesn't forgive, and it doesn't forget. Investors started pulling out. A venture capital firm that was about to offer us Series B funding. Gone. They said they were concerned about leadership stability and ethical practices. Other entrepreneurs stopped returning my calls. Conference invitations were rescinded. I went from industry darling to cautionary tale in 3 weeks. But the personal destruction was worse than the professional. Our mutual friends chose sides. And they didn't choose mine. Jake, my college roommate, sent me a brutal text. Dude, I've known Sarah for 5 years. She's the most honest person I've ever met. If she says her over. Don't contact me again. My own sister called me crying. How could do this to her? Mark, she loved, she gave everything for. And her away the second didn't need her anymore. It wasn't like that. I kept saying. But even as the words came out, I knew they were lies. The loneliness was crushing. I'd go home to our apartment. Now just my apartment, and see traces of Sarah everywhere. Her coffee mug in the sink. Her notes stuck to the bathroom mirror. Her favorite blanket, still on the couch. I'd removed her from the business, but I couldn't remove her from 3 years of shared. I started drinking. Not heavily at first, just enough to sleep. But sleep meant dreams, and dreams meant reliving that hotel room conversation over and over. The business was hemorrhaging money. Without Sarah's client management skills, service quality plummeted. Reviews went from 5 stars to 2 overnight. Our reputation was in free fall. I had to lay off employees. People I'd hired with promises of growth and stability. They looked at me with disgust when I gave them their severance checks. One of them, Amy from marketing, said something that still haunts me. Know what's funny? Sarah always talked about what we're building. Only ever talked about what we're building. We should have seen this coming. 2 months after Austin, I was functionally broke. The company was surviving on fumes. I was surviving on delivery food and whiskey. That's when I saw Sarah's new LinkedIn update. She'd been hired as director of digital strategy at one of our biggest competitors. Her starting salary was more than I was currently making. The announced that hun was a congratulations from people in the industry. People who used to court my attention were now courting hers. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to feel betrayed. But all I felt was empty recognition that she was exactly where she deserved to be. Where she would have been years ago if she hadn't her time building my dream instead of her own. I did something pathetic then. I created a LinkedIn account and looked at her profile every day. Read the glowing recommendations from her new colleagues. Watched her speak at conferences where she was introduced as a visionary leader and startup veteran. The she was living now should have been ours together. But I'd made sure that was impossible. The final came on a Tuesday in November. I was at my parents' house, having been essentially evicted from the apartment when I couldn't make rent. Mom was making dinner and trying to pretend everything was normal. Dad came in with the mail and handed me an envelope. Expensive paper, formal return address. It was a wedding invitation. Sarah's wedding invitation. She was marrying someone named David Chen. A guy I'd never heard of. A ceremony was in 6 months. I stared at that invitation for 20 minutes. My hands were shaking. She moved on. Mom said gently, looking over my shoulder. It's only been 4 months. I whispered. 4 months for, Mom replied. But she probably checked out of relationship long before Austin. Just didn't notice. She was right. Looking back, I could see it now. The way Sarah had stopped trying to correct people when they gave me all the credit. The way she'd stopped arguing when I made unilateral business decisions. The way she'd stopped talking about or future. She hadn't left me in that hotel room. She'd been leaving for months. I was just too narcissistic to see it. I called her. It went straight to voicemail, but I left a message anyway. Sarah, it's me. I got invitation. I want to know I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I need to know that I understand what I did. I understand what I lost. I hope he makes happy. I hope he sees what I was too blind to see. She never called back. But 2 days later, I got a text from an unknown number. This is David, Sarah's fiancé. She asked me to respond to message. She appreciates the apology, but she's moved on. Please don't contact her again. She deserves peace. Even her rejection was handled with more class than I'd ever shown her. I looked around my childhood bedroom, surrounded by the debris of the I'd destroyed, and realized something terrifying. This was just the beginning of the consequences. It's been 2 years since Austin. I'm writing this from a studio apartment that smells like cigarettes and broken dreams. Working customer service for a company that sells insurance to people who can't afford to get sick. Let me tell how completely I destroyed the business died 6 months after Sarah left. Not dramatically, just a slow bleed until there was nothing left. I had to sell everything just to pay the debts I'd racked trying to keep it alive. But here's the thing that really destroys me. Sarah's new company. They're doing exactly what we were doing. Except better. She took everything she learned from our 3 years together and built it into something incredible. I watch their success from the sidelines like some pathetic ex checking social media. Their client testimonials read like love letters. Their employees post about company culture, like they found their calling. Sarah gives interviews about building businesses that prioritize people over profit. She became everything I pretended to be. Last month, I saw her speak at a conference. The same conference where I used to be the keynote. I bought a ticket with money I couldn't afford to spend. Sat in the back row, wearing a baseball cap like some kind of. She was radiant. Confident in a way I'd never seen before. When someone in the audience asked about overcoming setbacks, she said something that made my chest tight. Sometimes the biggest favor someone can do for is show exactly who they are. It forces to stop making excuses for them and start making moves for. Everyone laughed. They thought it was general advice. I knew she was talking about me. After her talk, I did something. I waited by the exit, hoping to catch her alone. When she walked out, she saw me immediately. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "Hello, Mark," she said quietly. She looked different. Stronger, her hair was shorter, more professional. She wore a wedding ring that caught the light. But mostly, she looked at me like I was a stranger. "We're amazing there," I said. "Really, I'm proud of Pawn." She tilted her head, studying my face. Okay. Look, like garbage." "Yeah, I know." We stood there awkwardly. People walked around us, networking, making deals, building the kind of we used to dream about together. "I heard about the company," she said finally. "I'm sorry it didn't work out." The kindness in her voice almost broke me. It was never going to work without. I admitted. I just didn't realize it until it was too late. Sarah's expression softened slightly, but not in the way I desperately hoped. "Mark, I need to understand something. It wasn't just about the business credit, or the public recognition. It was about respect. Stopped seeing me as equal. And once that happened, we were doomed. I know that now. Because from where I'm standing, still think this is about losing something that belonged to. But I was never yours to lose. I was partner until decided I wasn't worthy of being one." She was right. Even in that moment, part of me was hoping she'd realize what a mistake she'd made leaving me. "How's married?" I asked, hating for the question. Her face lit in a way that destroyed me. "David sees me," she said simply. "When I have an idea, he asks questions because he's genuinely interested, not because he's looking for flaws. When I succeed, he celebrates me instead of finding ways to diminish it. When I'm struggling, he supports me without making it about him. Everything I should have been. Everything I could have been." "I have to go?" she said. "Take care of Mark." Really? She walked away and I knew it was the last time I'd ever speak to her. That night, I got and called my old mentor, Professor Williams from business school. He was the one person who might still take my call. I destroyed everything. I told him through tears. The woman I loved, the business we built, my entire, and for what? My ego. "Mark," he said carefully, "what exactly do you think lost everything?" "Sarah, the money, the respect, the future we planned. No, he said firmly. Lost those things because never actually had them. Can't lose someone's love if never earned it. Can't lose respect never gave. Can't lose a future we're actively sabotaging. His words hit like physical blows. Sarah didn't leave, he continued. She stopped pretending that the person become was someone worth staying with. There's a difference. After I hung, I sat in my pathetic apartment, and finally understood the full scope of what I'd done. I didn't just cheat Sarah out of credit. I cheated her out of 3 years of her. Years she could have spent building her own dream, instead of enabling mine. Years she could have spent with someone who actually valued her. I cheated too. Not just out of Sarah, but out of becoming the kind of man who deserved her. I had a woman who believed in me completely. And instead of rising to meet that faith, I used it as permission to become my worst self. But here's the part that really haunts me. A lot of other people too. The employees I laid off when the business failed. The clients who trusted us and got burned when I couldn't deliver what Sarah used to provide. The investors who lost money believing in my lies. All the ripple effects of my selfishness, spreading out like cracks in glass. I see Sarah's success now, and I'm genuinely happy for her. Not because I'm some reformed saint, but because I finally understand that her success was never dependent on me. I was just lucky enough to be there when she was building something beautiful. The worst part isn't the loneliness, or the financial, or even the professional exile. The worst part is knowing that somewhere out there is a version of my where I chose differently. Where I celebrated Sarah's contributions instead of erasing them. Where I built her, instead of tearing her down. Where we grew together instead of me growing away from her. That version of me gets to wake next to the most incredible woman I've ever known. That version gets to build something meaningful with someone who sees the best in him. That version gets to be proud of who he became instead of ashamed of who he revealed himself to be. But that's not me. That's not who I chose to be when it mattered. I'm writing this as a warning. If have someone in who believes in, who sacrifices for shared dreams, who stands by. When things get hard, don't take them for granted. Don't let success make forget who helped get there. Don't let ego convince that their contributions don't matter. Don't wait until they're gone to realize what had. Because once they stop believing in, once they stop fighting for what built together, once they realize they deserve better than scraps of acknowledgement, they won't come back. They'll do what Sarah did. They'll take everything beautiful they brought to someone who actually deserves it. And I'll be left exactly where I am now, alone with the echo of own voice, finally admitting truths to an empty room. That should have spoken, when someone who loved was still listening. Sarah Chen, she kept David's name, just announced they're expecting their first child. I saw it on LinkedIn because I'm still pathetic enough to check. The comments are full of congratulations from our old friends, from clients who loved working with her, from colleagues who respect her. People who used to know me. I'm not in that story anymore. I wrote out of it the moment I decided she was replaceable. If you're reading this and recognize in my story, stop. Right now. Go to the person who believes in and tell them exactly what they mean to success. Give them the credit they've earned. Treat them like the partner they are, not the assistant demoted them to be. Because I promised losing pride is temporary, but losing someone who truly loves is forever.